Hello, everyone. Well, this sounds familiar. We've heard that before. Multiple news sources are describing Putin's response to the European efforts to find some type of path to peace in the war in Ukraine deranged. He replied extremely angrily and unprofessionally, calling European leaders piglets and declaring that the war goals will be met unconditionally, which is where I say, I told you so. But seriously, remember, we talked about this yesterday when we looked at the headlines and people were saying, this is being done, steps are being taken, conversations are taking place. And I told you, none of this matters because this is his attitude. He insists that Ukraine is basically its historic property, which is not true. Russia originated from Ukraine, not the other way around. And he basically said that if their demands weren't met, they'll take what they want by force. And of course, there are other points from their so-called peace plan, which include not being held responsible for any death, destruction, suffering, war crimes they had committed in Ukraine. And that is why Zelensky is asking for Article 5 style security guarantees that are legally binding. We go back to the conversation about various alliances, agreements, memoranda, and so on and so forth that have very little value unless there are some type of ramifications for those who do not abide by the terms. And this is what we're talking about here. At this point, it should be beyond reasonable doubt for anyone that Russia is not interested in peace unless it's something that includes Ukraine's capitulation. Moreover, they keep referring to eliminated the root causes of the conflict. Basically, if you poke around a little bit, the root causes of the conflict, as Russia interprets them, is Ukraine's existence as an independent country and wanting to determine its own political, economic, and cultural path. That's what they describe as the root causes. I know that if you look at Russia's propaganda, they're going to say that Ukraine is full of Nazis, that Russian-speaking people are being abused. Those are all lies. And I can tell you this because I grew up in a Russian-speaking family in Ukraine. And my family, my parents, who are still in Ukraine, still speak Russian. Nobody's abusing them. Nobody's persecuting them. There are no Nazis in Ukraine. Does Ukraine have a nationalist party? Yeah, it does. So does the U.S. Does it have some radical groups? Sure. So does every other country. None of those things are an excuse to invade a country and demand control over its future. Of course, this is another embarrassment. Even as Jared Kushner's company is in trouble, that's a separate issue. Read up on that. Google it. But Russia is sending another delegation to the U.S. to talk with an American set of representatives in Miami. Guys, do you understand that these people that you are inviting on American soil are aiding and abetting a war criminal? Do you understand that? How is this okay? And I mean, this is another embarrassment for the U.S. after Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska. When did it become okay to invite war criminals and their friends, not their friends, their sycophants, their servants, to the United States and treat them like cherished guests? Because this is exactly what is happening. Zelensky's right when he says that if Europe continues dawdling on releasing Russian frozen assets to Ukraine, this will endanger Europe as a whole. He's right. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Zelensky. I disagree with him on a lot of things. I do not think he's a good politician. I don't think he's a particularly good president. It's not a popular opinion, but there it is. But when he says something that makes sense, that is intelligent, yeah, I will agree with him. And this is one of those things. He's right. It should be a no-brainer. Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia had caused tremendous damages to Ukraine. Ukraine is not asking for any country to put their people on the ground. They're just asking for money and weapons to be able to fight off this threat, which incidentally they're fighting on behalf of Europe, because the whole reason Russia invaded Ukraine was because Ukraine was pursuing a political path that brought it closer to the European Union. They're not asking you to sacrifice your sons and daughters. They're asking you to basically stop protecting, to enable them to stop protecting you with one leg in a bucket and their hands tied behind their back. It should be a no-brainer, and yet, for some reason, there's still hesitation. And yeah, one of the primary opponents of this is Belgium. And again, Belgium, I want to remind you what happened to you. You got hammered during World War I. You got hammered during World War II. Both times, you suffered. Your people were displaced. Your people lost their homes. Your people were persecuted. This is what's happening in Ukraine right now. You should understand more than anyone what it's like. Stop being a coward. This is not a time to maintain neutrality. And again, just as I said yesterday, what we should be watching, not what anybody says, but what they do, ultimately. There have been a series of brutal strikes on Odessa, so this is going back multiple days at this point. Odessa had endured a 5-day blackout after those. This is on top of the damages to Odessa itself and the surrounding smaller seaside towns, including the one where the Turkish vessels were damaged. But once again, people there reflect the national sentiment. They're not interested in surrendering. This is just making them angrier. They are continuing to fight. This is what they're saying. Working with their friends, their neighbors, their family members, total strangers, is how you survive this war. Some of the stories from Odessa and from other cities remind me of what we had to do a little bit, what we had to do after Hurricane Helene a year ago. Except it's so much bigger and it's so much more dangerous. They're talking about helping their neighbors, pitching in together to purchase generators, protecting each other's children, watching out for potential danger, sharing information. This is Ukraine. They're not surrendering. More to come.